truth is buried under layers of silence for security reasons, therefore insecurity. We are broadcasting from an undisclosed location. This is Akashic Echoes, a curiosity-fueled dive into the strange, the hidden, and the wait, what? Corners of human history, where Alex asks the questions others won't. Dr. X opens doors you didn't know existed, and Titus keeps things just grounded enough to follow the thread. It's part investigation, part storytelling, and part late night. What if everything we know is slightly off? We're not here to hand you truth, wrapped in certainty, only to spark thought, entertain the mind, and maybe raise an eyebrow or two. So tune in, enjoy the ride, and remember, take everything with a grain of salt, preferably the size of a small asteroid.
Tonight we look up, not just at the sky, but at one of the most famous moments in human history. July 20th, 1969. Millions watched. A man stepped onto the moon. Or did he? So here's the question. Did humanity really take its first steps on the moon, or its biggest leap in staged illusion? Dr. X. Let's begin with the obvious. Why do people still question the moon landing?
Because history that powerful leaves shadows. The event was monumental, technologically, politically, culturally. And when something that large happens under Cold War pressure, people ask whether the story was too perfect.
Too perfect how, Doc X?
The timing, the symbolism, the broadcast, the fact that the United States was racing the Soviet Union to the moon. For some, it feels less like a scientific milestone and more like a global statement, Alex.
So the suspicion isn't just about the moon itself, it's about the context around it, Doc.
Exactly, Alex. Conspiracy theories rarely grow in empty space. They grow where pressure, secrecy, and public spectacle meet.
Dr. X. Titus has something to add. Listen.
And to be clear, the Apollo moon landings are supported by a large body of evidence. Telemetry, mission data, rock samples, and independent international tracking. The debate persists mostly because some visual details appear unusual to non-experts.
Thanks, Titus. Right. So the episode isn't, was there evidence? It's, why do some anomalies still keep the theory alive?
Because anomalies are magnets for interpretation. A strange shadow, a waving flag, missing stars, odd lighting. Each detail becomes a seed.
Let's take those one by one. The flag.
People often point to it appearing to move. But on the moon, the flag wasn't waving in the wind. It was moving because of the way it was handled, and because of the design of the support rod.
So that one has a practical explanation.
Most of them do, once you understand the environment.
What about the shadows? Some argue they don't all line up consistently.
That too can be explained by uneven terrain, lens effects, and multiple light reflections from the lunar surface. But on first glance, it looks strange. And strange is often enough to keep doubt alive.
Titus.
This is a pattern across many public controversies. A technical explanation may exist, but if the explanation arrives later and in jargon, the mystery feels more believable than the correction.
Thanks again, Titus.
That's an important point. The myth survives because the explanation doesn't always land as cleanly as the suspicion.
Now let's address the big one, the missing stars in the photographs.
A classic. The exposure settings used for the lunar surface were not designed to capture stars. The cameras were focused on brightly lit astronauts in the moon's surface. No conspiracy required, just photography.
So the footage wasn't built to satisfy every visual expectation a viewer might have.
Correct. But people don't usually watch history like technicians. They watch it like witnesses. And witnesses notice what feels wrong before they understand why.
Let's go deeper. Why do these moon landing theories persist when the evidence for the real mission is so extensive?
Because the moon landing sits at the intersection of trust and ambition. If you don't trust governments, institutions, or media, then the most extraordinary event in history becomes the easiest one to question.
So it's not just about the landing itself, it's about the broader question, who do we trust to tell us what happened?
Precisely. Titus, something to add, body?
Also, humans are pattern-seeking creatures. If a few anomalies stand out, our minds often give them more weight than a mountain of ordinary evidence. That doesn't mean skepticism is bad. It means caution is needed.
That's fair. Skepticism is useful. But skepticism can become a trap if it refuses to move once the facts are in.
And belief can become a trap if it never asks what really no other completely more power. For you, but then we're listening to me around to this peered van. And belief can become steads for another companies with a surface on the mountain of suver for it. This is a very powerful service with life.
So the real lesson here may not be the moon landing was fake or the moon landing was unquestionably real. It may be that the event became a battlefield for a much bigger issue, whether people can separate uncertainty from denial. Is there right, Doc?
Yes, and whether a spectacular event can survive without being endlessly reinterpreted, Alex.
Yes, Titus.
Yes, Alex. For the record, the Apollo program remains one of the most documented achievements in history, but the cultural power of a mystery is often stronger than the satisfaction of a settled answer.
That's what makes this episode so enduring. Not because the story is unresolved, but because the idea of hidden reality is always seductive.
The moon landing gave humanity one of its greatest public victories. And as with all great victories, some people assume the truth must be more complicated.
Maybe because truth usually is complicated. So, was it a giant leap for mankind, or a perfectly staged leap for television? The evidence says one thing, the doubts say another. And the debate, decades later, tells us something even more important. That extraordinary events don't just change history, they change trust. And once trust is fractured, every shadow looks like proof. Tonight, we've explored not just the moon landing itself, but the deeper forces that keep the debate alive. How awe, doubt, and trust collide when history feels almost too extraordinary to believe. The evidence for Apollo remains vast and compelling, yet the persistence of skepticism reminds us that people don't just question facts, they question the systems behind them. In the end, this isn't only a story about footprints on the moon, but about how we interpret truth in an age of spectacle, uncertainty, and human curiosity. Because long after the rockets have launched and the dust has settled, one question continues to echo. Not just what happened up there, but what we choose to believe down here.
This has been Akashic Echoes. Stay curious. Stay aware. And remember, take everything with a grain of salt, preferably the size of a small asteroid.